hard to regulate our emotions sometimes, and I think we have these big expectations that we put on these little bitty humans that are so new to our world. Hi guys, my name is Kenzie from Kenzie's Wholesome Life, and today I'm going to be talking all about parenting. I wanted to make a video talking a little bit more about my parenting style because it is often very misunderstood. I get a lot of questions about it, and it's just different. It's different from the mainstream behavior style parenting. So if you want to know more, or if you've ever been curious, or maybe you're just looking for a different alternative to parenting, just keep on watching. So the style of parenting that I use for my son is respectful parenting. This can also be referred to as RIE parenting, which is a term coined by Magda Gerber. Stands for Resources for Infant Educators. Also, if you want to check out some of her work, I highly recommend her book, Dear Parents, Caring for Infants with Respect. I read through the whole entire book, and it was such an amazing resource for me as a new mom caring for my little son. So the first point that I want to talk about with respectful parenting is how we communicate with our children. A huge part of respectful parenting is having authentic communication and conversations with your children. A lot of you may know my son is 1 year old. He just actually turned 1 a week ago today. Oh my gosh. And I talk to him just like I'm talking to you right now, or like I would talk to anyone else. So I really try hard to refrain from baby talk, talking to my son in a real voice, just like I would anyone else. This actually helps promote language development, and it just gives him a good sense of reality and how I actually speak. On the other hand, I like to talk to my son about real things. I know with a 1 year old, you can be like, well, what would you have to talk about that's not real? And you have a good point. But as children start to get a little bit older, a lot of times we don't have meaningful conversations with our children. And I'm so looking forward to having these real, authentic conversations with my son as he grows and as his language develops more. You know, talking to him about his favorite foods and what he would want for lunch, and just things that actually pertain to him instead of just a bunch of make-believe stuff. Also communicating things that you are physically doing to your child. This was a huge thing for me, and I love the analogy of picturing yourself as an older person. You're still a whole conscious being. You just may not be able to communicate like you used to be able to when you were younger. I remember right after I had my son, actually 2 days after I had my son, I went and saw my grandmother in the hospital, and she was unable to communicate with the doctors, but the doctors and the nurses told her everything that they were gonna do before they did it. So even something as simple and small as, okay, Linda, I'm gonna put the blood pressure monitor on your finger now, okay? Okay, we're gonna lift your arm up now. Just being respectful of the other person's body in terms of how you're touching it and how you may be moving it. So for instance, from the day that my son was born, I have asked him if I can pick him up, if I can change his diaper, you name it. I've asked him. If it pertains to his body, I always make sure I ask his permission. Now, you may say, Mackenzie, what are you talking about? If my son has a poopy diaper and he doesn't want to be changed, obviously I need to change his diaper. And yes, you're totally correct. There are times my son doesn't want his diaper changed either, but it's always about the respectful communication and saying, okay, Kingston, you have a poopy diaper and I'm gonna change you now, okay? And I always walk him through every step. We're gonna lay down now. I'm gonna lift your bottom up now, okay? We're gonna take your diaper off now, and I'm gonna wipe you with a wipe, and it might be cold. I can tell you that when I become an older woman and someone else is taking care of me, I would so much rather somebody tell me, hey, I'm gonna take your pants off and we're gonna, clean you up a little bit. Like I said, it's just all about being respectful of that other person's body. And my son's awake. Another thing that I want to touch on is independent play. So I have introduced independent play ever since my son came home from the hospital when he was just a few days old. He's always had time alone to himself while he's been awake, because that's important as humans. We need connection and we thrive on community, but we definitely still need our time to ourselves. And this applies to infants and children of all ages too. By allowing my son to play independently, he is gaining confidence in his ability to do things on his own. He's gaining focus and concentration to work on a task, and he's also given the freedom to play however he pleases. And touching on another point, being that when I do play with my son or when I do observe my son playing, I really try to stay silent as much as possible. There are times when I get the natural urge to say something like, oh, you have the ball. Oh, I see. Oh, look how that car is rolling. And then I think about me. And I think about, if I'm working or I'm studying for a test, would I want someone constantly over my shoulder saying, oh, what's that you have? What are you doing here? Oh, look how fast you're typing those words out. That would be really distracting and I probably wouldn't get very much work done. So I try to give my son the same respect in allowing him to play however he feels and not pressuring him to play to please me in any way. I think oftentimes we as parents forget that this is our child's life too. They're not here to please us and they're not here to perform for us. They are simply here to explore who they are, and it's our job to foster that creativity and imagination that they have. And independent play really fosters that imagination and creativity. My son is actually awake right now, and sometimes he will come to the door and knock on the door when he's ready to get out. He knows that that is how he can let me or his dad know that he's ready to come out of his room and he's done sleeping. But there's other times, like right now, he's probably been awake for 5 or 10 minutes and he's just content. He sounds like he's still laying on his bed, but sometimes he'll just kind of play with his toys or look through his books. And I allow him to do that. And if you're wondering like how he gets out of his bed and comes to the door, we do have a floor bed for him. So it's just a mattress on the floor, to give him the freedom to come and go as he pleases. A lot of people think when they think of floor beds like, well, my kid is just gonna play with their toys all night long. And yeah, some kids might. And honestly, if he gets up in the middle of the night and he wants to play with his toys, that's totally fine. But I think he's done that maybe once. He knows when he's tired and he is able to go back into his bed and go to sleep when he is tired. So that is a really good example of giving your child a little bit of independence in order to listen to their body and their body's natural rhythm. I have actually filmed this video a few times and I wrote notes down with points that I wanted to speak on every single time, but it honestly just felt too scripted, and I really just wanted to sit down and make it a super casual video talking about things that were important to my personal style of parenting. I don't necessarily follow Rye 100%, but I do for the majority. And the authentic communication and independent play is a huge chunk of how we navigate. Another really good point that I wanted to make leading off of that is co-regulation. And this isn't necessarily something that's specific to RIE or respectful parenting, more so maybe like conscious parenting, but that is making sure that both parent and child are emotionally, physically regulated, and that you're able to do that together. So I allow my son to feel hard feelings. I don't try and shush him and tell him, oh no, it's okay, don't cry, you're okay. I let him feel those things, because if I was to come home from a really bad day and I was to go to a friend or my partner and say, you know, I just had a really bad day and I just needed to cry and let it all out and feel these big feelings, I wouldn't want someone saying, no, shh, 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 shh. Like, you're okay, why are you crying? It's all okay. I would want someone to tell me, yeah, I'm here, and you can cry and you can feel these feelings, and just validate me for feeling the way that I feel, because sometimes even as adults, it's hard to regulate our emotions sometimes, and I think we have these big expectations that we put on these little bitty humans that are so new to our world. To be able to regulate their emotions so well, and to not cry when they don't get their way, or to not throw a tantrum when they're really tired and they just physically are not meant to stay awake for an extended period of time. And I think it's so important to remember that we as adults are doing the best that we can, and we actually have so many more resources to deal with these big emotions than our little ones. If we're feeling stressed, we can talk to a friend. We can call up a friend or text a friend or go on a jog or go to the gym, or some people have really unhealthy habits and maybe go to the bar and have a drink. And these are all different ways that people cope with their big emotions, but how are we teaching our children to cope with those big emotions too? Because how they learn to handle these big feelings is how they're gonna handle their big feelings when they are adults, or they're just gonna find other ways to do it, and sometimes those are not the healthiest. So allowing our children to feel these emotions and them know that it's okay and that we still love them even when they are having a hard time, is so important for your relationship and the trust that you and your child will have long term. And a quote that I really love by Janet Lansbury is, your children or your child are not giving you a hard time, they're having a hard time. And again, I think that we just have to remember how new these little babies are, or these little kids. They're just doing the best that they can, navigating this world, this new big world and life that they have been given. And I think that we just need to show them a little bit more grace, and that, you know, we're doing the best that we can too. So I'm gonna go ahead and end this video here because my son is awake and it is lunchtime for us. But if you want to see more behind the scenes of mine and my son's day-to-day life, you can follow me over on Instagram. My handle over there is Kenzie's Wholesome Life as well. And you can always direct message me over there and ask me any questions or give me video suggestions, and I would be happy to make them. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for lots of mommy content. Until next time, I will see you guys later. Bye.